seems fair to me.
Yes, it did.
Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it. Unacceptable by any reason.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
A little early for Valentine's Day, but it's right around the corner, so some of us are bedecked correctly. Thank you for tuning in to Donnybrook. Oh, I'm sitting in for Charlie, and you're going to meet who's sitting in for me this week. We're going to start with Wendy Wiese from KTRS. One of our founders, Bill McClellan.
And it's a Valentine's Day.
Valentine's
Right.
Day.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Another founder, Reid Hartmann from Raw Story. And Sarah Fenske is me today, and I'm Charlie. So, kind of on a serious note, we're going to start out with Lacy Clay and Brandon Bosley have kind of been, names are out there in connection with the scandal that went down beginning, I guess, late last year. And now there was names bandied about that there may be some other people involved that may or may not take in some money. But the Post-Dispatch ran a story and put some names with those rumors, and that was Lacy Clay and Alderman Brandon Bosley. Wendy, can you believe that the esteemed former congressman was involved in this?
I can't, frankly. And I couldn't visualize, there were certain parts of the story where, you know, somebody of his stature walking into a gas station and walking out with $10,000 and his security detail. I just couldn't, I could not put that together. The story says that the bribes were offered. That is, in our business, heckin' gone from taken. So they interviewed him and he said that it was an awkward non-denial denial, but it was still a denial. He's never been accused of being ethically out of balance or something like that. And instead of just saying no, you know, because $10,000 with the work that he's doing on K Street in Washington, I don't see it. I don't see it.
At the time, he wasn't doing the K Street lobbying. And, you know, the feds have been after the Clays for 2 generations.
Right.
And it's not hard to believe that these people come up against the edge like this. And public official #1 who had federal connections and
a security detail.
And
yeah.
Lewis Reid and Jeffrey Boyd are part of the old Clay group. I mean, it seemed like, well, of course it was Clay, and wise enough to say, I want that money not in cash but in checks and made out to the PAC. I mean, it sounded very plausible.
I feel like this has been the worst kept secret in town. Yeah. Everybody has been talking, man, you know that's Lacy Clay. And I have to give the Post-Dispatch credit because rather than letting it just sort of stay in the realm of rumor, they pieced it together. They showed he was in St. Louis on the day that all this went down. I mean, the circumstantial case was really compelling.
Yeah.
I do think it's important to point out that they didn't do it. I mean, in other words, that it's, and I'm not criticizing anybody for what they've said or the Post for covering it, but it isn't quite the same as taking it. I mean, in other words, and I think it's questionable judgment to be accepting an envelope in any context, if you're a congressman or whatever. Like
even for his PAC.
Well, he didn't cash the check.
That's the point. Well,
he brought it back.
But the point is, I don't. The optics of it are awful, but I think it's a little. I don't know. It's a bit of a slippery slope. I think to sort of lump it in with the guys who are actually in the Gray Bar Hotel.
Right. Well, that's where I kind of, this wouldn't be I guess it would be a story, but I think the reaction would be a lot more hostile toward the Post for running this if 3 people weren't already in prison. And the fact that 3 people are in prison, connected with this individual, what's going down, then it's a little more than
a name like Clay
or
Bosley through the mud. It better be more than circumstantial.
And I don't think it is. That's what troubles me a little bit about it is it needs to be said that they have been accused of doing nothing wrong. And I mean, it's interesting.
Ray, I mean,
No,
you have the guy in the gas
I get
station
it.
going, I don't know if I should take this because there might be cameras around.
I get it.
He's not saying, I don't know if I should not
didn't
take
say
this.
that.
Right.
I'm not saying they should get.
comes back with
I'm not saying they should get gold. I'm not saying they should get gold stars. I'm trying to say
Thanks,
that they aren't being accused of anything. Okay, at this point. I mean, they're not being accused of
But being offered, he could have been offered a lot of things.
They're not.
And
they're
he could have
I'm
said,
not saying.
no.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He could have said, I don't work like this.
Absolutely. I'm not arguing that. I'm just
Okay.
saying there is a difference between, say, where Louis Reid is right now
That's
and where
right.
these guys are, which is not accused
Well,
by the law.
there's a big difference in that one has been indicted and the other hasn't. And he hasn't been indicted. I think it's good.
All
He hasn't
none of
been
us
indicted.
have been indicted either. I
But
mean, my
isn't it
point
good
is,
for the public to know that our congressman?
I'm not
was-
arguing that it's
what
not
do
a
they
story.
know? What do they know conclusively?
Yeah, that's
What-
I'm
that's
not.
the
I'm
you
not.
know.
You didn't hear me criticize
I
folks.
thought
I know I
putting
sound
this
like
story out the way
Pollyanna.
they did was very good
That's fine.
journalism. And
I didn't say it wasn't. I just said
well, what
we
are you
ought to be.
saying, Ray?
I am saying we should be very clear that these people have not been accused of it.
Well, look,
they have not
a
been
crime.
legally
They have
charged
not-
with
They
anything.
have not been
Ray.
accused of actually of accepting a bribe.
Exactly. They have not been legally charged. They have been accused.
Okay.
We are accusing them of wrongdoing, but we don't have a say in the matter. So, but they are being accused by the general public.
Is
by,
that what we
by-
do?
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
sure
right,
that
right.
that's what we should
I don't
be
think
doing.
that's what we do.
I don't think that's what
I
we do.
cannot believe that the
Okay.
most disorienting thing is that I
They
agree with
already-
The
Ray.
newspaper can't indict people.
I
They can
didn't
just write
say
out stuff.
they shouldn't have
I think
published
Alvin
it.
is making a very good point
I'm
here.
just saying,
And-
if this were me, I would say like, hey, let's get to the crux here. You're accusing me of a crime, and my answer would have been,
I'm lawyering
I did
up.
not do this. I'm lawyering up. I'm
Right.
doing whatever I do because I didn't do it. You're accusing me of a crime, and I don't think they did it wrong. I don't think anybody has done anything wrong. But oh yeah, they stand accused, to use a blues term.
You and I are dinosaurs, I guess.
Okay. Friday afternoon, my daughter, a student in engineering at the University of Missouri Columbia, sends me a text. Said, Dad, the Chinese spy balloon is over Columbia. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. Did the happy hour start early down there? What's going on? So a few seconds later, I get a text. And there's the Chinese balloon flying over the greater Boone County. So that made it our story suddenly. Sarah, should we be overly concerned with this balloon? Or did we do right by the balloon? What?
I gotta say, it's hard to get too worked up about the balloon when I gotta suspect that 99.9% of what the balloon captured is on Google Earth, and that our for-profit companies are already doing what the Chinese government is trying to do. I get why the government's concerned about it, why Hans Blinken canceled his visit. That seems very appropriate. I thought this was actually kind of a nice moment, like almost like when there's a solar eclipse, all of America comes together, looks to the heavens, and we see what kind of looks like a Schnucks bag flying past.
No, I said that yeah, your story with the garbage bag on the limb at the top of the tree. I like that.
Yeah, it seems that there is, though, a great deal of investment on the part of both senators at this point in making China the only boogeyman on the horizon, and how that plays, how that pays off politically, is anybody's guess. But it seems to be a pretty powerful political platform at the moment.
It really, balloons probably shouldn't, Chinese balloons shouldn't be political. And if Joe Biden had the balloon, probably irresponsibly, I'm guessing, shot down over Columbia, Missouri, I'm sure Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt would have figured out some reason to accuse him of jeopardizing the people of Missouri. And in this case, they didn't shoot it down, so the Republicans decided the fact that he waited till it got over water, which is apparently the appropriate place to do this,
the
that
state.
was some terrible, weak thing. And it's too bad we can't, like I say, just enjoy a nice Chinese balloon story without having any ethnicity.
Well, when the Chinese invade with balloons, you guys will be talking.
We won't be
different
laughing.
story.
But weren't we just
50,
talking
60 balloons with eight or 10 guys on.
on each one? But we were just talking about TikTok right?
Yes.
TikTok in China.
Yeah, they have invaded.
They've already
They're in
got-
our phones.
Yeah, they're in our phones.
We're letting them in
That's
because
right.
they're so entertaining.
Well, hasn't there been kind of a Dr. Strangelove vibe to this?
Yes.
We had the general at Scott talking about war in 2 years, and he wants his airmen to be, target practicing. And I thought, if the airmen at Scott have to be shooting it out, we're in trouble.
Yeah, especially with a 45. Right. I will say this. Every second that balloon was over the continental United States was a complete and total embarrassment to China. And I'm sure we had every possible, plausible piece of spy equipment we have focused on that balloon. We are getting so much information about how the Chinese do this and how they build things that's invaluable. And just the fact that we embarrassed China for like over, 3 or 4 days?
But see, are
that's
they really
that's
embarrassed?
invaluable.
They're China.
Oh, no, they're embarrassed.
They make their own.
Where do you think you are? If you were in charge of this balloon project in China,
well,
where
that
are you
person
at
is,
right now?
That person is probably underground.
Yeah, I was going to say they're probably not with us anymore.
Yeah, that is somewhere in an
why not play it
undisclosed
out?
location.
Hey, look what China's up to. They're
Yeah.
so embarrassed. I would have laughed all the way till I shot it down. And they waited till it was over water, but not 12 miles, because it was still in the United States of America. Everything was done perfectly.
I have to say, and it was also really good for Lacy Clay. We're all talking about, oh, public official number 1. The next thing you know, we're like, look up there. Like, it just worked beautifully.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of TikTok, a video has been out there for a long time. We have a woman who has been terrorizing a Latino family, and I'll say the woman is white, okay? She's been terrorizing a Latino family, and they've got videos of it, and they put it out there, and it went viral on TikTok originally. And it turns out that I guess there was some kind of complaint. It has been turned into Kim Gardner's office, and it sat there in some file forever. I just have this feeling that race is playing a role, and here's how, okay? I think if this had been a black woman terrorizing a white family, I think the police would have been a lot more vigilant on it. I think if it had been a white woman attacking a black family, I think Kim Gardner would have been a little bit more vigilant on it. As is, it ends up in some folder someplace or in a file. And for some reason, I think that doesn't happen if the situation is different. Do you agree or disagree, Bill?
I disagree. I mean, I don't think this is a racial thing. I mean, the police went out there and on 3 different occasions arrested this woman and went to apply for warrants, and we're told that, I mean, it's so dysfunctional, the circuit attorney's office. And, we have 200 murder cases pending, and Kim Gardner doesn't know what she's doing. And so they say, oh, well, put it in the box over here. And, they don't tell the police that that box is going to sit there. And so if it hadn't gone on TikTok, they wouldn't have done anything.
Well, can't the police step in and say, like, this involves a hammer and a woman who might not be in her right mind? That's dangerous.
Well, if you remember when we had Christine Byers on a year ago, she was talking about how the grand jury, when it gave its report after the conclusion of the grand jury, just uninvited, just commented that they found the antagonistic attitude between the police and the circuit attorney's office very frightening. And I think that, the police don't go in there and talk to the circuit attorney's office and say, this is a problem and there was a hammer involved. I think the circuit attorney's office says, just leave it in the box. And that's what happened. I don't think this is a racial thing.
I think Bill is right.
Dysfunction.
I think Bill is right. I do think, and I've been saying it for a long time, that the dysfunction between the police department and the circuit attorney is a 2-way street. And too many people, I guess people are free to take a side, but I think it takes 2 to tango in this case, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't think it should all be, a lot of people want to put all of that at the feet of the attorney.
I'm one of them. I don't think you can blame the police on this thing.
No, I didn't say on this one.
Okay.
No, I'm saying in general, I think that lack of...
In general, I still think it's all dysfunction and
I do not think it's all on Kim Gardner. However, I do not think there was any racial component to this one.
I think what happened in this case, in part, is that there is so much violent crime in St. Louis. I say this as a city resident who's a big booster for this city, but we have a huge crime problem. And if there's not a gun, it just ends up becoming a lower priority. And if you have somebody with mental health issues, there's kind of this attitude of like, Oh, great. Here's another one. This is complicated to deal with. We don't want to throw the book at this person, but yeah, they're kind of a problem. It doesn't make it right. It shouldn't go in the non-urgent file. This poor family being terrorized.
Yeah, it's horrible.
But it's like it's a hammer instead of a gun. Hey, guess what? We had 3 homicides tonight. Like, we've got a lot to deal with.
But does this speak to the need for a special prosecutor, a state-appointed special prosecutor?
Despite the dysfunction in Miss Gardner's office, she's the elected prosecutor, and it's really up to the citizens, not the legislators.
And that explains
And one of the
why
problems
this
with
keeps
the,
happening.
Well, one of the problems with the legislators, this is whatever the point is about Kim Gardner. There's more than a few not so great prosecutors' offices across.
Well,
the
and that's been pointed out too down that way, and I don't know that it actually happens because of that. Also, guess what? One day Kim Gardner's not going to be the circuit attorney anymore, and then down in Jefferson City they're going to say like, oh, I guess we're going to change our minds now. You know,
They're just playing.
a law is a law, and they're kind of, like I said, they'll be changing their mind about this in 4 years or who knows, however long. Okay, Cori Bush, she's been known to really get out there and share her opinions in public places, and people have accused her of grandstanding and being a little too flamboyant. Well, one of her staffers, who is running for mayor of Jennings, interrupted a Jennings council meeting here recently, and she is running for mayor against the current mayor of Jennings, and really ended up on video, interrupted the meeting, had to be escorted by the police, and Cori Bush was escorted her from her job, her staff. Sarah, is this hypocritical on the Congresswoman's
You know, it is interesting. I thought this was a good scoop on the part of the Riverfront Times.
I
that
agree.
Had this
I
story.
read it nowhere but there.
That's right. You know, politically, it's often a problem to challenge an incumbent, and we all have our alliances. And so this woman who, we haven't heard anything saying she was not doing a good job working for Cori Bush, is challenging this incumbent, finds herself being slandered in this meeting, reacts very violently to this, like, I did not do this. You're falsely characterizing this. It seems like the kind of move you would think Cori Bush herself might do, and yet she ends up getting fired for this. So it's not the greatest look, I would say, in terms of Cori's activism.
I'm on the, well, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Okay, there's room for one of us doing this kind of thing in this office, and it's me.
See, I've always believed that Cori, she's out there in the street. She herself is marching, that she wanted to encourage other people to have that kind of attitude towards authority. So I thought it was kind of surprising. One reason I think we thought it was news.
I thought so too, Sarah. I thought it was exactly the sort of thing that Cori Bush might do. Nobody's going to lie on me, and just get up there.
The other side of that is you really, as a friend of mine puts it, you check your First Amendment at the door more than in normal, when you go to work for a political office holder. And, it sort of comes with the territory for the staff.
But I thought
I don't disagree with your point. I'm just saying the optics, back to that word, are not great. But I mean,
she didn't look very professional in this interaction at Jennings City Council.
If you do something, and I don't know any of the dynamics between Cori Bush and this particular mayor and so forth, which might have come to play. But I think the argument that this is political because the mayor went to Cori Bush, to me, if you're a staffer in any way or a worker for a member of Congress, you're on a pretty tight leash, no matter how flamboyant, whatever your boss is.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, if I'm the head coach and I'm yelling at the referee and I get a technical foul, that's one thing. Talking about basketball here. But if the whistle blows and I look down the bench and it's assistant coach down at the end of the bench gets a technical foul, I'm going to have a problem with that. Like, wait a minute, hold it. That's my job.
But that's what Cori Bush is, to Sarah's point, that's what Cori and Bill's, that's what Cori Bush is all about, is rewriting the rule book, I thought. And
power to the people.
I would think that she would encourage that kind of thing, honestly.
I'm just, power to the people is not power to every employee that I'm signing a check on.
Apparently not. Apparently you're correct.
All right, speaking of checks, Lucas Kuntz says, hey, if you're in office, you got to sell all your stock. Ray, you wrote a column. I think you kind of agree with him. But why are we gonna do this? I mean, that's not fair to those of. I almost said for those of us who want to hold office. That was a Freudian slip. Because I have no stock. Gotcha. What do you think, Ray?
Well, Lucas Kuntz is running for Senate against Josh Hawley, and has announced it for 24, and he almost got the Democratic. Well, he didn't. He tried to get the Democratic Party primary nomination in 22 against Eric Schmidt. He's making a point. Josh Hawley has gotten some mileage out of jumping on with a lot of other people of both parties, saying that we need, you know, to ban stock trading, and some of it is so egregious. It's equally across the party lines, so there's no issue with partisanship in this. I like his point. I mean, I understand that in a world where blind trusts are executed properly, the person who has them isn't aware of what's going on. But what Lucas Kunz is saying, and I kind of agree with him, is, you know, that's not the world we're living in. And in reality, these people know what their blind trust. If they got $1 million in Facebook stock, they know it. And whatever compromise they will feel for having that Facebook stock before that goes into blind trust, that isn't going to change anything. So he's saying the answer's simple. I served in the Marines. We sacrificed to serve. You want to serve. It's not saying give your stock up, but sell it if you want to serve in Congress. I don't have a problem with it. It's not realistically going to happen.
Yeah, I like Lucas Kunz, but the idea that if you're a public official, you can't have stock seems ridiculous, because people want to save for retirement. They want to, their kids go to college, and this isn't joining the church, right?
I got it.
You know, you're not taking a vow of poverty.
Well, but
so I like Lucas Kunz.
Do you think they should ban?
Let me ask
Do you think they should ban stock trading then, while you're in Congress? Because that's what's going on. That's what Nancy Pelosi and all the others on both sides of the aisle are doing.
No, I don't. I think as long as people, I think it should be public what you're trading.
Okay.
But
there's a lot of movement, and Hawley's part of it, that says we've got to, and I'm with Kunz on saying that, and I think we can probably all agree, no matter what they say they're going to do, it's probably not going to make any difference.
I mean, I think that's the big problem. Like, you could say, okay, you got to put it in a blind trust, or, oh, you have to divest your stock entirely. The corrupt ones are always going to find a way to be corrupt.
That's exactly right.
And so they're going to hand it off, like my second cousin, so that it doesn't count as my wife, and then they're going to take it back when they get out of Congress. And so it's kind of like this campaign finance reform stuff. I'm always so in favor of it in theory, and then you see how it plays out. It just makes it harder and harder to trace who's doing what. I almost think we should go back to, you could write a $10 million check to anyone you want to, because, hey, at least that way we know where the $10 million is coming from, versus all this bundling that's going on now where you can't figure out the source of it.
I'm with you on that. No, I'm with you on that. And as I say, I didn't sit here and say Lucas Kunz came up with some magical great idea. I think he's got an interesting point that this nonsense where Josh Hawley and the Democrats are saying we're going to reform this system by, you know, by banning stock trading. He's just calling his bluff, saying, "Hey, you're going to ban stock trading? Why don't you sell your stock? You put the money away."
Yeah.
I don't think I like his argument. It's not going to happen.
Okay. It's been said before. You know, the system is broken.
He's making a good point. It's been said. That's been said.
All right.
Yeah.
There is a new breed of congressperson coming in. And I know that there were a couple that just got elected, one black young man, and he said, like, I can't afford to live in Washington, D.C., you know, but I have to live here because this is where my job is now. So I think we need to stop maybe looking at everything like, even though most of the offices are held by rich white men still, we have to quit looking at it like that, because if you pass something like this, now you're telling a younger congressman or woman that you got to get rid of the stocks that, you know, your grandparents gave to you that helped pay for you to go to college, on and on and on. There is some sentimentality in this too, and I just, you know, that's why I bristle at it. Everything is not a cookie cutter, and yeah, most of them are rich, and yeah, they could do it easily, but you're eliminating some stocks for some people who might desperately need them to actually survive 2, 4, 6 years in Washington, D.C. Sunday, the Super Bowl. We can say that because we're not making any money off the Super Bowl. We can call it the Super Bowl, not the big game. All right, a team from Kansas City is playing the Chiefs. And while I take that little chop thing they do, I'm rooting for the Chiefs, but my wife is going to kill me. Unfortunately, I think Philadelphia is going to win the game. Bill? Who you got? Round the table. We got
Okay,
about-
well, I think Philadelphia, and I'm sort of rooting for them just because I'm petty enough. Kansas City, everything is working for Kansas City. And they're like the teacher's pet. So I kind of hope the Eagles win.
I love it. Why is Carmen going to be mad?
Big Chiefs fan. Tells
Well,
me to shut up.
Tell her
right.
that, I'll be texting her on Sunday.
All right.
Yeah.
Huge Chiefs fan.
Yeah, well, this
Huge.
is Valentine's Day and Chiefs bet.
Right.
So,
Patrick Mahomes has 2 moms. One is my wife.
Is your wife?
Yes.
I think Chiefs are going to win. Just because they're more playoff tested, but I mean, Super Bowl tested. I root for them. I'm a cheesehead first and foremost now in my post-Rams existence.
Yeah, they're not playing.
But there's
I'm well aware.
The Cowboys.
I'm
right.
well aware. Joe Holloman and I are well aware that our
stuff out there with the vote against the Rams and all of that. That's not going away
But I root
anytime
for the
soon.
Chiefs.
But I am rooting for them.
Actually, I work with a guy named Mike Chahar, and he said like the only place in America, based on a poll, that was rooting against the St. Louis Blues the year they won the Stanley Cup was the Kansas City area. He hates them. Sarah Fenske,
Wow.
you'll be watching, right?
I will actually not be watching. I'm going to pretend that it's because I'm standing on principle. What they did to St. Louis, that was terrible.
That's it.
I
That's
can't
it.
abide it. In reality, I just don't know anything about football. I don't care, and I hate the NFL.
Well,
Sorry.
valid points.
Who do you got?
No.
Who's playing? I don't even know.
We should have shot the balloon down over your house.
Well, at least she didn't go like full Cubs and go against the Kansas City Chiefs out of.
Yeah, I mean, I'll
pettiness.
save that for McClellan
That's
here.
full.
No, thank you, Sarah.
That's like going
Yeah,
full
wait.
Chicago Cubs.
Wait. Exactly. Speaking of,
Someday when you guys are old and grumpy.
we'll understand. All right. Thank you guys.
I am old
Thank you guys for watching. Sarah Fenske, thanks for sitting in for Charlie, technically, and I'm sitting in for Charlie, too. Okay. You can write us at Donnybrook, care of 9 PBS, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Send us an email to donnybrook@9pbs.org or tweet #DonnybrookSTL. Give us a call on the comment line, 314-512. It went away. I have no idea what the last 4 numbers are. And Spotify, TuneIn, Google Play, and Apple. Once again, thank you, Sarah, very much. James Clark from the Urban League. He's out on the street doing his job, and it's a tough one. We're going to talk to him next on Next Up. Everybody have a great evening. Go Chiefs!
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.